Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Migrant Hope channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking a lot about how to deal with constructive criticism at work. I know that this is something that at some point in your career you would probably get from your supervisor, or even you would have to give it to someone else. So in this video, that's kind of what we'll be talking about. Make sure you stay tuned. I have my nice cup of tea here and I hope that you stay tuned for the rest of the video. Thank you. Hey everyone, so just to get right into the video, so before we actually talk about like few pointers as to how to deal with constructive criticism, it may be helpful to actually get an understanding of what it is. And usually constructive criticism, it's when you're giving feedback on any work that you've performed or any task that you have been delegated to perform at your job. Now this is something that you will typically get from your supervisor, or sometimes you as a supervisor can be giving it to people who work below you. That's kind of how it works. So the first thing I would say is never ever take it personally. I think so many times we end up missing the point of the criticism with like taking it personally, and you think that the person may be trying to attack you, which I really and rarely would think that that's the case. You know, if anybody is your supervisor in a company where you feel welcomed and you feel like your input is valuable, I don't think anybody in their right senses would be there to trying to attack you. So don't take things too personally. I know I had made another video about how to kind of deal with difficult and negative work environments, and I talk a lot about the fact of not taking things personally, because sometimes if you do, you end up missing the point and you end up missing the lesson as to how to become and be a better individual and more so professional. So try as much as possible not to take it personally and just listen. So point number 2 is have an open mind when you go into getting this feedback from your supervisor, or whether you're the supervisor giving it to individuals. Sorry guys, I was trying to wash the shirt and I bleached it by accident, so that's kind of why I keep putting my hand up, because I'm conscious of it. In any case, when you go in to get feedback, make sure that you have an open mind. I find that a lot of times if I'm going into a feedback meeting with my supervisor and in a circumstance like that, if I kind of have a biased mind, like saying, okay, this person is not going to give me a good review and so forth and so on, then of course, like, it already clouds my mind, it clouds my judgment, and I'm not able to see past what this individual is actually trying to show me, versus like, you know, just seeing that like, oh yeah, they're biased and stuff. And it's very important to have an open mind, because sometimes we may think that we are you know, I think a lot of us believe that we are great at our jobs, which is amazing too, but at the same time too, you have to understand that you can also be wrong. There's always room for improvement. And if you have at a point in your career where, or if you're at a point in your life where you feel like you cannot do anything wrong, then you may want to question that, because I don't think that anybody gets to a point in their career or their job or whatever the case may be that they feel that they cannot be corrected, or they don't have any room for improvement. So be sure to keep an open mind when you go in to have this sort of conversations, because at the end of the day, you want to become a better person, and you want to be able to use that information to be able to better yourself. Now the second thing is, before you actually go into getting this assessment or getting this not critical self review, but constructive criticism, is do your own personal assessment. This is something that I do all the time before I go in to get and my job we call it snapshots. Before I go in to get any snapshot from a supervisor, I will make sure that I do my own personal review. And what it is saying, okay, for this task that I performed, for this job particularly, how did I think I did? And depending on how I thought I did, that's kind of, it's going to be able to help the conversation, and for me to be able to get a better understanding as to what my supervisor expected versus what the work that I actually produced. And this will be very helpful, you know, like in the other points that I'll talk about, why I think it's so important that you do your own personal review first. Now the next thing I will talk about is, which is very, very important about constructive criticism, is listen before you react. And I know that, you know, we've heard this several times, you know, people have told us before, it's always good to listen before you react. And I know that sometimes it may be very hard, because if somebody is kind of telling you something that you may not want to hear or you disagree with, it's so much easier to just say, oh no, I don't agree with this, without truthfully listening to what they have to say. And listen without the aim to respond, but listen to actually take it in and to really understand where they are coming from. I found that it's a lot more helpful. You end up being a better person, you just end up being a better professional. It's not all the time that you have to like respond to what the individual is saying about you, and it may not even be a good thing, or it may not even it may not even be a bad thing necessarily. But sometimes if you don't listen, you would not be able to get, they cannot get their point across. Two, you're not going to be able to get the full message, and it just defeats the whole point of being open and receptive to constructive criticism. Coupled with listening properly is you want to be able to ask questions, which is why I said, it's important that you do your own personal assessment first, and then once you listen, it's like, okay, I have what I thought I did was great or maybe not so great, and this is what my supervisor is saying. Now how do I become a better person? And that's where you have the opportunity to be able to ask a question. I realize that, and I've talked to a lot of people, whether it's colleagues, friends, I've told people that when you go into these meetings to be able to receive this constructive criticism, make sure that you ask questions, because if you don't ask questions, you end up feeling like, oh, this person may have just been attacking you. Whereas if you think about it and say, okay, no, if the person say, all right, Charlene, you did not do so and so great, you did not like coach your the staff below you properly, I'll say, okay, if you feel that way, or if you think I did not do that way, one, can you give me an instance, and how do you think that I can be able to improve on that point? Because as a result of that, then you're able to do better for yourself, and you realize that you're not going to make that same mistake the second time, and you're not going to have that same conversation again. So I find that it's very helpful. Make sure you ask the questions, make sure you ask how you can improve. What was the instance? So there may have been a misunderstanding. You may have done something, but your supervisor may have read it a different way, which is now the point and at which that you get to be able to ask and respond to those, if they have any questions. Make it a dialogue. Don't make it like somebody is telling you what to do, because then I think that sometimes the reception is not so great. So make sure that it's something that you can have conversation. Now, the next thing that I would recommend is make sure that while you're having this constructive criticism discussion is you're actually writing down some to-dos, and to say that, okay, this is what was highlighted, maybe not so, maybe not do this. If they said, oh, you did this one thing great, maybe write it down and say, this is something that I want to keep on doing. Now, all my supervisors, many of them know I have my YouTube, and many of them know that I truthfully do this. I've been doing this since I actually left college, and I don't even know why I started it. I actually have a Google Doc where I write literally for every snapshot at my job, of course, which I mentioned. For every snapshot which I've gotten, I write down, I do my own personal assessment, and then I listen to what they have to say, and then I write to-do points. Now, I do that all the time, because at the end of the day, I want to improve, I want to be better, and I want to be a better professional. And I make it very clear to them. Now, we can be having the meeting, and every time one of my other supervisors, every time me and him are having the discussion of constructive criticism, I'm always typing, taking notes and everything. And he's like, what are you always doing? And I'm like, oh, the reason I do this is because I like to take down notes. I want to say, okay, this is kind of what was brought up to me, when I was a first year. And I've done this, I've been working at this job for almost 3 years now. I've had it since I was a first year. So I can literally see like how I was doing as a first year compared to now I'm about to be a fourth year or be a senior almost. So it's one of those things that you get to be able to see like your improvement. You get to be able to assess your own self and say, okay, this is kind of how I've been doing versus what other people may deem I was not doing well, and how I have improved, and so forth and so on. But it's very important. Make sure you take notes and make sure that you write improvement points, and make sure you also emphasize on the things that you're doing great so that you keep on doing. Now, the last thing I would say is the reason I said it's important for you to write down things is because you want to be able to revisit that sheet periodically. Now, I actually told this to one of my supervisors. He didn't know that I used to do this, and I actually told him that, yeah, I've been doing this since I started work here. And the reason is I write it down so then, okay, if you're bringing it up in this snapshot, we're not having the same conversation in the next snapshot. If we're having the same conversation in the next snapshot, one, it means that I did not revisit my sheet, and this is something that I did not work on. And now, you guys know I always use this phrase all the time. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is the definition of insanity, and I would like to be a sane person. So that's kind of why I write down things and I revisit my sheet. I revisit it like throughout the period. We get snapshots honestly speaking, maybe like I get snapshots after like every phase of the audit for the most part, which I will give or take like 3 months. I'm probably butching this, but I'm pretty sure it's not 3 months. But it just depends on I would say yeah, because I got in December. I got a bunch in December, and then we're now in about March, Aprilish. I'm getting a whole bunch now because busy season is over now for me, at least for the most part. So yeah, so about 3 months. So I revisit it throughout busy season, and I do it once a week. People know this. Like I've shared this. I don't tell every single person, but when people ask me, oh, how do you do your own personal assessment and stuff, I say I revisit my sheet once every week and just look at the things that they said I need to improve on, and make sure that I'm actually working on that. If I feel like I'm not meeting up with it, I'll have a discussion with you prior, because I don't want you to repeat that in my assessment, and I don't want the same point to be brought up, because then it really, really doesn't show that you're trying to improve and you want to do better for yourself. So these are just a couple of things that I've done, and they've worked for me, and they have been able to really, really help me become a better professional and become a better. So guys, I hope this was very helpful for you. These are just a couple of pointers that have helped me in my professional life so far, and I've shared this with a couple of people, how to be able to receive feedback, constructive criticism versus like someone attacking you, which I mentioned this in my intro. Like I don't think anybody out in their mind as it is will be trying to attack you. So just be open to it, be welcoming to the feedback, and know that people want the best for you and want to see the best in you. That's why they give you this feedback, and be receptive of it. So these are just what I've been able to do for myself, and they have been very helpful for me thus far in my career. I hope that you guys can use this, as whether you're embarking on a new journey now or whether you're just starting out your career. Thank you guys so much again, and I'm very grateful for all the love and support and all the help so far, and all the comments and everything. It keeps me going. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in my next video, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.